Karthik, therefore, with CEOs and such like being vocal, and the fact that social media allows the Aam Aadmi consumer to reach out, right? Mr. Mahindra, Mr. Kotak, Mr. Goenka, great examples. But with that also comes the fact that a lot of their personal ideologies sometimes might impact the brand. We just spoke about Mr. Bajaj, and there have been cases when employees, it doesn't have to be the CEO, who clearly have their company name on their Twitter bios or their LinkedIn bios or wherever, say things that may seem completely out of whack or something that might bring the brand discredit. What do you think could marketers and content creators like you do help to save these situations?
I think I'm just connecting this to what Vani said earlier and what Karthi also said, right? Like, see, but when I was talking about not reacting to something and letting it go, it was mostly because of our inability sometimes to maintain the grace, that Karthi was talking about, right? Beyond a point, if you have this one-on-one conversation, which is with bullies who are out there, obviously with an agenda, then you sort of sound more like an admin and sound less like the brand itself, right?
So, Karthik, if I may interrupt, so I get that. And I think Vani made a good point that we are, in a sense, curators. Conversation is not one-sided as it once was. But I'm saying, what if employees of a company who have their names prominently on their Twitter bios now say something very political, right? A lot of it comes back to sting the brand, right? People say, oh, brand manager X from so-and-so company, had a pro, whatever particular issue tweet. Yeah. Then how does that situation kind of handle?
Yeah, I think my 2 cents on this, Lloyd, is today, outside of trolls and bullies, today I think people have spent enough time on social media in the last decade and a half for us to understand that the organization has limited liabilities when it comes to what employees talk about. I think there are 2 schools of thought in this. There are organizations which definitely stop employees from talking about anything. And then there are organizations that are much more open like that, right? Personally, I'm a more fan of the other side of it, right? Where I trust the consumer to know the difference between an employee's personal opinion and what the company stands for.
Great. One last quick question to each of you. Sorry, go ahead, Vani.
No, so I just wanted to say that, at Pepsi, we used to have very strict guidelines on what could you say in what forum. You had to take approvals on where you land up and where you are the company spokesperson or the brand spokesperson. And I think that was the right thing to do. Because the fact is that when you are, let's say if I'm the category head, the marketing director at Pepsi, I do have that identity. And if I happen to make any remark which is not divorced from the company affairs, then I do owe that responsibility to the company and the brand, knowing that will have some implications on the brand or the company. That's number one. Number two, responding to what Karthi was saying, I wanted to say this has been a pain point for me with large corporates. We're still learning as large corporations as to how to respond to individuals who write in with their view, because we have a very company corporate out way of responding, so we would have a standard response. For example, Kurkure mein plastic hai, we had a standard response that was, ticked off by legal and by compliance and by SRA and blah, blah, blah. And that paragraph that came, that was sanitized by all departments, was impossible to read. It was impossible to digest. And our constant battle was to explain to the organization, look, they're human beings. And like Karthi said, we must come across as being human beings. We must come across as being a brand that's approachable. So it has to be done on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah. And the importance of immediate response in social media, because no one's going to wait for your 4 levels of approval.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So even if you have a ready response, please, you can't do an automated response. You can't copy paste that paragraph everywhere.